Happy draft week to all who celebrate. We do it here on the PHLY Eagles Podcast. I'm Zach Berman for this Monday show, here with Fran Duffy, the ALLCITY NFL draft analyst, Bryant Flinn, the wide receivers coach at Princeton University. I can give you a whole preamble. I'm in today. We're for Bo Wolf in the host seat. Bo, the top host in the city. We're thinking of him, but you don't need my preamble. We got two of the best wide receiver guys in the business here today. We are talking wide receivers, okay? Coach Flinn, thank you so much for joining the PHLY Eagles show. You're one of our favorite guests.
Yeah, great to be here. Fun fact, my first Bird with Friends appearance was also Wolf paternity related. So I'm the guy. Give me the call. There was another Wolf added. I'm the guy to come in and help out.
We will let Rachel know. Fran, this is your week, man. You've been building up to this. What's it like? I mean, just give us what it's like now for you, 3.5 days out from showtime. We need that mic working by Thursday.
Yeah, but I got to unmute before Thursday. I'm excited. You know, it's always fun when you get to this point in the calendar where it's like, all right, like you're excited for most of the evaluations are done. I'm watching like a random guy here or there. I always wish I had more time to watch more players, but at the end of the day, the hourglass keeps turning. So I'm excited for Thursday night to get here. I'm really excited for our shows and for our coverage over the course of the 3 days of the draft. So it's going to be a fun week.
So, as I said, we're brought to you today by TrueMark Financial Credit Union, and the wide receivers is the premise of the show. We've been counting down these position previews throughout the past 2 weeks, saving wide receivers for a day when we could talk to Coach Flinn, but also it's relevant in that this was, I've heard, a topic of conversation in Philly this week. I'm going to start this off by saying A.J. Brown's going to be on the Eagles on Friday morning. He'll be on the Eagles Saturday morning. He'll be on the Eagles on September 4th when the Eagles kick off week 1. You don't have to worry about the Eagles' top receivers. You'll have A.J. Brown. You'll have DeVonta Smith. Jahan Dotson, who the Eagles traded in a package with a third-round pick, he's going to be the number 3 receiver presumably this year. That's not as set in stone as the top 2. So of the positions we've discussed, this is probably the spot where you have the least worry about the top of the depth chart. But beyond the top 2 guys, there's intrigue. We don't know about Johnny Wilson. We don't know about Anaya Smith. Frankly, we still don't know about Jahan Dotson. And then, Britton Covey's not going to be back. The Eagles signed Terrace Marshall Jr. They've added kind of a few other guys, but there's no one there who you say, if AJ went down, if DeVonta went down, you feel strong about that group. And then beyond that too, we know long-term, AJ, DeVonta signed long-term deals last year, but the Eagles are always trying to figure out how they can replenish that pipeline. So the top of the draft, we don't have to focus on that too much, but I am curious what you guys think between Travis Hunter, who I'm curious what Coach Flinn thinks, if he's a wide receiver, if he's a corner, a few other players there. How do you guys stack up the top of the draft? I'll start with you first, Coach Flinn.
Yeah, I mean, not that Travis Hunter's being undersold. Maybe I think he's being undersold as an offensive player because there's always a lot more wideouts than corners. You're always looking for a corner with his size, athletic ability. His instincts are ridiculous. The volume of snaps he played, it's incomprehensible to me, really. Like, I don't know how you can do it. But when this is about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we sat in here and watched his offensive highlights, and they're ridiculous. Like his body control, his ball skills, he breaks tackles. I know he's getting a ton of buzz, top 2, 3, wherever he shakes out. But I mean, he's really, really good as an offensive player. I think you have to have him do both. Now wherever he majors, where he wants to major, where they put him, I don't know. But as an offensive player, like won the Heisman Trophy. He's legit. The other guys at the top, I mean, I think it's, Zach, you've done you're on the Luther Burden bandwagon. Yeah. He's the one guy, him and McMillan, that I had watched before this year that were like the 2 top rated guys going in. And I didn't watch Burden until after the season. And, there was like, his production dropped and this and that and the other. But like you put the film on, man, and he just like breaking tackle. Like, I mean, you can't get him. I mean, his production did go down, but like the clips that he has are ridiculously good. So, those are the guys at the top. And then really the list that I watched to try to marry up with the list that you guys sent me, like there's a lot of quality throughout. And again, I'm probably missing somebody, and that's why you got Fran here. But like the guys at the top, I think are good. The guys in the middle, I think, are pretty good. The thing about receivers, it's no different. I don't think recruiting in the draft. Like there's not very many quarterbacks, there's not very many left tackles, there's not very many corners, but there's always a lot of good wideouts. So I think you can always get value as you go down. But like Travis Hunter on offense is like legit. I mean, I know that's, man, thanks for coming on the pod with this mind scoop that you got us. But I think that gets forgot sometimes because he's such a good defensive player too.
Sure. Fran, your top 5 receivers: Travis Hunter, Luther Burden, Ted McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, and Matthew Golden. Why did you settle on those as your top 5? Because that order is different than what you see from some of your colleagues in the draft media.
Yeah, I mean, basically echoing what Coach Flinn said about Travis Hunter. I most of my study on Hunter had been as a corner. Coming into the year, I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch him as a corner. I dabbled with some of the pass game or some of the offensive stuff, but most of my study was like, all right, like especially if he's going to play both ways. My assertion was, all right, like if you're going to play both ways, you have to major as a corner and minor as a wide receiver. I think it's tough in the NFL to go the other way. And so going through it, I'm like, all right, I am going to just sit down and let me just watch him clean as a wide receiver. And I was blown away by the flat. And I was like, yeah, like that's why, honestly, like when I did my ranking, he is my number 1 wide receiver. And now the ranking is if he embraces where he's only going to be a wide receiver. If he's only going to play 12 to 15 snaps a game at wide out, you're not going to grade him that way, right? Just because the ROI there is not going to be, it's not going to be parallel. But I think when you're looking at what he can do, I mean, some of the plays, Coach Flinn, like how hard is it to find a guy where, he's tracking a deep ball, takes his eyes off it, like looks at the safety, looks at the sideline, waves to somebody in the stands. Oh yeah. And then they find it late and then track it in over the shoulder. Just unbelievable ball skills. Just he's a natural. And it's the same thing at corner, honestly, because even though you're watching him as a corner and you're like, yeah, you probably don't teach it this way. You probably wouldn't want it to look this way on a teach tape. You wouldn't be making a coach's teach tape that way. But he's just so naturally gifted. And then with the ball in his hands, to me, that's when he looks fastest, is when he's got the ball in his hands and you let him create after the catch. People have questioned what the speed would look like when he's got to turn and run, but just a dynamic player. So he was easy for me as wide receiver 1. For me with Burden, I agree as well with Coach Flinn, and I kind of stand by it after watching all the targets. He was my wide receiver 1 coming into the season, Luther Burden, and coming out of it, Hunter aside, he's my favorite from this group. I think when you're looking at the health of that offense, the health of that pass game this year, certainly not what I think that people were expecting after the 2023 season. I do think that he showed a little bit more toughness, a little bit more grit as a junior, as a sophomore than what he did as a junior. There were a bunch of shots in 2023 where, he takes a vicious hit over the middle and pops right back up, full extension, takes it to the ribs and is able to keep on rolling. So I thought you saw a little bit more of that, but outside, I mean, this guy, a lot of people make of, well, you know what? He's a lot of scheme touches and, this stuff doesn't translate. There's plenty where you see him, the vertical throws down the field. And you see that twitch as a route runner, that ability to create separation. So I don't know what I'm missing when it comes to the Luther Burden stuff. And then I think there's a tier break. And then it's everybody else for me, Zach, when you get into that next group where it's you talk about Egbuka, you talk about Matthew Golden, you talk about T-Mac, Tetsuo McMillan, and then it's flavors of ice cream kind of discussion. It depends on what you want. And so, we'll talk about all those individually, but that's how I view this group as a whole.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to have further Burden discussion and just to kind of give context to the audience here, the wide receiver beyond Hunter who really intrigues me is Egbuka, which probably doesn't surprise those who know my allegiance to draft to the rankings coming out of high school. But I just think he's such a fascinating player. He's complete in so many ways. But with Burden, Bo and I were going through 10 possibilities for the Eagles to do, and he sends me Luther Burden, and I said, "Really, Luther Burden?" And his point to me is, look, if he's there at 32, is the value too good to pass up? And so that's the question I want to pose to you. When you kind of take away the Eagles depth chart and you're sitting there, you just won the Super Bowl. Okay. You might lose your starting tight end next year. If somehow this player who is a unique talent, if he somehow slips down the board, could you rationalize taking him as a luxury pick at 32?
I mean, for me personally, I can rationalize it because he's really high for me. So I think that I would sit there and I would say, was it the best use of resources? We can have that conversation. But I say purely from a talent standpoint, I would say, yeah, like they took the best player available on the board. And so if you are going to be strict with that, then you can very easily validate that choice.
From your perspective, Coach Flinn, is he like a no doubt pick if he somehow slips later than we think?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, and again, Fran would know better, but that's probably 10 or so picks, maybe more, lower than he's projected by some guys. And I also think he fits as the third wide receiver, like the juice he has in the slot and how you can get him the ball quick and he breaks tackles. So I do think, obviously they love O-line, D-line, DB. Like that's their move in the first round, and it's served them well. But I think they've also done, their history says if there's a really good player there, we're going to take them. So I think that's an easy one.
Of those top guys, Coach Flinn, so let's take Travis Hunter out of it. Between McMillan, Burden, Golden, Egbuka, who are you, I guess, least high on? And you obviously mentioned Burden there. I imagine you're highest on him, but who excites you the least of kind of that top five?
Yeah, the two things I would say, I these draft shows, I like to preface it with like, what the hell do I know? Number one, like I think there's a whole, and Fran could probably attest to this, but there's a whole, this time of year, everybody knows exactly how good somebody's going to be and where they're going to get drafted. Like somebody posted today on Twitter a really good 2-minute thing of Luther Burden's one-on-ones, and the comments were horrendous. Like the first comment was Hall of Famer, the next comment was, street free agent. But this time of year, everybody knows exactly how good everybody's going to be. Nobody has any idea, and me especially. Number two, I'd probably be the worst GM in all of football. Because when I'm like the biggest glass half full guy. Like I watch Egbuka, and then I watch Golden, and I'm like, oh, I like him better because I watched him last. I think Fran's point is the one that resonates with me. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. Like McMillan probably has the single best individual game out of anybody I saw this year. He had the one where he hit for 10 catches for 300 some yards.
Right.
Like there's probably a little, again, I hate the comp game, but like, I'm like, hey, this guy reminds me of not as top end fast Mike Evans at his best, and then I watch Golden, and Golden's, again, a perfect example this time of year. There was a whole conspiracy on Twitter about his 40 time was fake. There was 85 tweets on my timeline about they fake. Meanwhile, you put the tape on, he's running by guys, he's physical. When he got hurt against Ohio State, I mean, that really changed the game, for Texas offensively. I like him. Egbuka is just an all around solid guy in every way. Like he kind of just does a little bit of everything. Scary Terry for the Commanders, like just kind of is a guy that you'll put in there for 7-8 years and could be a really solid player. So I'm kind of with Fran where there's just a bunch of good, and I think for me to differentiate them, I'm not sure, I've watched them enough or know enough to be able to do that. But it's again, I'm the worst because like I watch a guy, I'm like, oh no, he's the best player I've ever. Oh no, I'm taking him. No, I'm taking him. But I think it's a deep group, and it's also versatile. Kind of I put them in buckets, inside and outside guys, and I think there's a good amount of both.
Now, so I'm pretending I'm Howie Roseman, which is something that I probably do too often, and I call you two up and I say, I'm interested in making a splash at wide receiver, not in the first round. So let's take away the top guys here. But I want to add to the spot. I don't know if Jahan Dotson is going to be on the team beyond this year. I want to keep adding here. Who's someone you're pounding the table for? Who's someone who I need to go back this week and watch the film on? Fran, you first.
For me, it would be Jaylin Noel from Iowa State. A little bit on the shorter side, 5'10" and 1/4, compact frame. But this is a guy that as I got done writing up the profile, I color code all my notes where it's like, all right, it's blue for strengths, red for weaknesses, and I won't color it if it's anything in between. There was a whole lot of blue. I mean, this is a guy that just played stronger than his size. I value guys that play through contact in every phase of the route. He can beat a jam early on. He can fight through contact mid route, and he can make plays through contact at the catch catch point. I thought that he was probably one of the better route runners of the guys that I studied in this area of the draft. I thought he held his vertical stem well. He's got the twitch to be able to separate at the top of the route. And most of his usage came underneath, but when he was targeted downfield, I thought he was really effective in that role as well. Had a fearless mindset, like kind of some of those plays I mentioned with Burden last year in 2023. You saw that from Jaylin Noel this year, where full extension, he's expecting contact underneath, and he's just laying his body and putting his body out in the line, can create after the catch. He's consistently graded out well as a blocker. He just does everything well. He was the Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Year as well last year for his value in the return game. So again, if you're looking for somebody that can come in, give you some juice both in offense and in special teams as that third receiver, to me, Jaylin Noel is the guy that would check that box.
How about you, Coach Flinn?
Yeah, I like the Noel shout out. The thing I thought watching him is he kind of plays like a stunt man. Like he just throws himself around, like, contested catch, balls behind him. He throws his shoulder back. Like he's not afraid of anything. Very well coached. The guy I like, Kyle Williams from Washington State.
Yep.
And I got, it's kind of similar to how I got kind of sold on Quinyon Mitchell last year, where I like Quinyon Mitchell's film. And again, I'm biased because, the Toledo guys are Mount Union guys and the Iowa State guys are Mount Union guys too. But, then we put on Quinyon Mitchell's Senior Bowl reps and he was just dominating people. It was like, oh my God, look at this guy. And it was the same thing with Kyle Williams. Like I watched his Senior Bowl reps first. I'm like, I don't know anything about this guy. Holy cow, he's really good. And then, he plays kind of similar to Burden, I guess, maybe a little more production. Obviously different schedule, different league and all that. But he was a guy to me that, jumped out. And again, the position is about separation. Like when you go, I've said this on here 100 times, like you go watch Eagles practice, A.J. Brown's in line and DeVonta Smith's in line. And they look like they play two different sports. But it's the same position. And why are they both good? Because they generate separation. They do it differently. Yep. But you watch Kyle Williams' film, like he runs away from guys. He wins in transition. You throw him the ball short, he runs long. So he's the guy I would like in that spot.
Now, Fran mentioned Noel, and Coach Flynn mentioned the Iowa State Mount Union connection. I want to dig deep onto those Mount Union group chats right after this break. Let me tell everyone here about Ashley. We talk about Ashley because the low prices are blooming. So spring into savings at Ashley. Save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms, and have it all delivered for free. Plus, get long-term interest, no interest finance, get long-term, no interest financing. Save on top brand mattresses and get free delivery, setup, and the removal. But don't wait. Spring into savings now at Ashley South Furniture and at Ashley South Jersey and Philadelphia. It's the NFL draft. You're going to want good furniture. Go to Ashley. Financing with approved credit. Minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
And now we'll hear from our friends over at Bet365 because we know whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. They live stream 780,000 events each year. And you've got those early payout offers across the NBA, NHL. We've reached postseason play. So we know that you could take advantage of those early payout offers where, again, if your team jumps out by 20 points, you get that instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for those live in-game bets as well across basically every sport, 78 different sports. We know we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs. We've got 3 playoff games tomorrow night, Tuesday night. And if you're going to watch some of that NBA playoff basketball, it's NBA Tip-Off Tuesday. It's another one of NBA. It's the Bet365 Tip-Off Tuesday where you can place those qualifying parlay bets totaling $20 or more on those games, and you get up to $25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Breaking news from Bet365 as well. Those new customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. you get those $150. So use that code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $150 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So all the Mountain Union guys in the NFL, they're on this group text and they're watching this Iowa State film, and they say, yo, Matt Campbell, you have two of the top receivers in this draft. You have one guy who's 6'4", 215 pounds, runs a 4.4, has 87 catches, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. And I'm reading Fran Duffy's draft rankings on allphly.com on the All-City Network. And I'm scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down. And I see your other Iowa State receiver way above him here. What am I missing? So, Fran, I'm going to go to you first because I put you on the spot here. From a profile perspective, if there's people picking up the draft right now and they're not watching the film and they're just saying they're doing what they do in Madden and they see 6'4", 215, 4.4 40, and they're like, all right, well, this guy probably doesn't have any production. And then you see production out of the gym, right? What's the reason why you're not as keen on him as those traits and that production would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, just when I watched the two receivers side by side, they couldn't be built any differently. You mentioned that with Jaylin Noel, he's a little bit on the smaller side, as we talked about earlier. Higgins, 6'4" and change, 214 pounds, 33-inch arms, 80-inch wingspan. I mean, this guy absolutely looks the part across the board. I love his hands at the catch point. Rarely puts the ball on the ground. He boxes out well on back shoulders and jump balls. To me personally, while I think that there is a savvy to his game, I do think that especially on some of those one-cut routes, I think that he moves pretty well, is able to separate pretty well in those situations. He's used to dealing with press coverage, and he knows how to get off a jam. I just worry about the overall athletic upside. I know the test numbers were solid. I just didn't think that he had quite that same level of twitch to create separation at a high level that I would want even from a bigger body. So that's what gave me a little bit of pause on Higgins in the film that I studied. But I'd be interested to hear Coach Flynn's take. I was just a little bit worried for a guy that size. And that's where you start to get, it gets a little hairy, right? We don't want to go all the way on the JJR thing, a white side aspect of things, but that's kind of the concern I had, watching Higgins.
Yeah, I think the thing that, it's a little bit of the Shaq, I wasn't familiar with your game meme for the Iowa State passing game. Rocco Bech was pretty good, man. He was throwing the ball all over the place. And what I think stood out about Higgins, and Fran touched on a little bit, is he's a big guy who plays to his size. Yep. He's 6'4" and plays like it. He goes over guys. He makes contested catches. I think he's better in transition than a lot of tall guys are. He can drop his hips. He can get in and out. I just think, Noel is a guy, same thing. When you watch their Senior Bowl one-on-ones, you feel really good about Noel separating against man coverage. And I think Higgins can. I think Higgins is more of an upside guy, or where Noel's more of the high floor. But there's, Fran said twitch, to me, it's suddenness, at the line of scrimmage, suddenness in and out of the breaks. Again, Noel's a smaller guy. But there's so much production there by both of them. I think they're both really good prospects. Again, I would rank them the same way Fran has them, but I think that's, to me, more of a compliment to Noel than as an insult to Higgins.
And now, Coach Flynn, so you're a football coach. You're not the draft analyst, okay? So I'm asking you this in the sense that you're watching the draft recreationally on Thursday, on Friday, and Saturday, and you've watched these guys on film as a football coach. Who's someone who you're like, why isn't this player getting more love? This is a guy who, when I watch the film, he jumps out to me. But for some reason, the teams, the GMs, the draft analysts don't see it. Who's that middle of the pack wide receiver who you don't understand isn't getting more attention?
So I know the reason why. I think if I didn't know the reason why, I would answer this the same way, because he did not run a good 40 time at his pro day. But I got hired here in February 2019. The first player I ever picked up and called and offered was from St. Thomas Aquinas, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Xavier Restreppo. And so I kind of followed him throughout. And then we have a really good room in here where guys come in and say, hey, coach, let's watch this player. And so about a month or two ago, we watched Xavier Restreppo's, targets, catches, all that from last year. And he was awesome. Then he ran, some extremely high 40 time that was, given a couple different reasons for it. But I think he plays fast. I think he gets open. I think there's a place for him. Again, I don't think he'd be a terrible fit with the Eagles because they're looking for a third guy, slot-ish kind of guy. So, I know why he's middle of the pack because of what he ran, but I think his tape and how he carries his pads are a lot faster than that. And he had an unbelievable season, just kind of came up big spots. You guys have watched Cam Ward, like Cam Ward when in doubt went there, fourth down, red zone, scramble, down by 10 points. Restreppo's making a play for him. So that's probably my guy, but I'm not confused as to why it is where it is. I just, we're still at the point here where it's like, oh, you run one bad 40 time and you're cooked. And I hope, hopefully we can get past that at some point.
Fran, your view on him?
Yeah, I mean, there are some players you watch and there's a lot of projection, right? Where it's like, all right, like, I don't know what this guy's going to be, or like, I'm dreaming on this player. I think that there's an expression of this guy comes with clear packaging. Like you know exactly what you're getting when you're watching Xavier Restreppo. This guy is a really savvy route runner. He never puts the ball on the ground. Just, your prototypical like quarterback's best friend type of slot receiver. Now, the 4.85 40-yard dash is like an anchor around his neck, right? And that's one of those things where if you thought that was in the realm of possibility to happen in the pro day, like someone's got to tell him, like, yeah, just you don't run, don't do it. He had a 6.83 in the 3-cone, solid time. You probably want a little bit better for a guy that small, but like solid time. 4.21 in the short shuttle. Solid time. He didn't do the jumps, which was a smart move. Keep in mind though, like 5'9", he was under 5'10", so 5'9" and 7/8, 29.25 inch arm, really short and compact. But he's the Darren Sproles, like he's short, but he's not small. He's 210 pounds. Like this is a densely built kid who can handle contact. I mentioned like the sticky hands. I thought the route running was there. He's been a core special teams guy, not just like, oh yeah, he's a kick returner, punt returner. Like he's on kickoff coverage, he's on punt coverage. I love that about the profile. The production has been steady. So I think there's a lot to like with Restreppo. There has been no receiver drafted in the last decade to run a 40-yard dash time that slow. So it's a big exception. And so that's why he would have been better off not running. But my guess is he's still going to get drafted. I do think that he will get drafted at the end of the day.
Who's that player for you? Who's that player who you don't understand why, in your case, teams aren't as high on this guy as you might be?
It's a good question. I'm looking through. I mean, to me, the guy that I was really taken aback by, and I saw him live at the Shrine Bowl or at the Senior Bowl. I watched him again at the Combine. I liked him more at the Combine than what I saw at the Senior Bowl. This one you are dreaming on a little bit. And that's Issac Tesla from Arkansas. This is a player that began his career at Hillsdale College in 2020, spent 3 seasons there, then transferred up to Arkansas in 2022 or in 2023 rather. And the production is extremely modest. I mean, he had 34 catches for 350 yards his first year. He had 28 catches for 545 yards last year, only started 5 of 13 games. But this guy is all tools. He's got NFL size, just under 6'4", 214 pounds. He's a good athlete. The athleticism shows up on tape. He runs well for a big receiver. I mean, he ran 4.43. And that's, again, that speed does show up. He's got a skill set to be able to defeat press coverage. He's got to get a little bit cleaner as a route runner for sure. Ideal. He's one of those guys where when he's got to break down and not just like drop his weight, he needs to improve. He's too fast in and out of cuts. So, I think that he can certainly clean things up as a route runner. But I mean, he hasn't dropped a pass in the last 2 seasons in the SEC. Now, small sample, right? We talk about like how few targets and how few catches he had, but when they threw him the ball, he typically came up with it. And he shows the ability to win above the rim, win like a big guy and win like a small guy. Guys like that, like have that versatile skill set, always intrigue me. Started at a smaller school. I'm excited for what Tesla could bring, but there's definitely a little bit. The packaging is not clear with Issac Tesla.
Yeah. Now, so my answer to this, and tell me I'm crazy if I'm crazy here, okay, because I'll defer to both of you on the evaluations. But you're told don't scout the helmet, right? And don't hold a school's history against a player. All right. So I stay up late on Saturday nights. I've seen Stanford play, and I see. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Elic Ayomanor. Ayomanor. Close. Okay. I saw him against Syracuse. I saw him against Colorado a few years ago, like 200 plus yards. And he's not JJ Arcega-Whiteside to me. He has more burst than JJ ever did. Is this someone who is going to be a better pro than college player?
For me personally, I like Ayomanor. He's got the NFL size, like you mentioned. He's got more juice than Arcega-Whiteside did. I actually think he even plays a little bit bigger than his size as well. What gives me a little bit of pause with him is he's extremely crafty. Like in terms of like winning at the line, press coverage. I think for a bigger receiver, like this is a pretty good collegiate route runner. He knows how to stack guys and find blind spots. Like there are a lot of good flashes with him. Just too many balls on the ground. Like that to me, like that was the one hang up for me when I watched Ayomanor. But I'm interested to get Coach Flynn's take. Like to me, like this was a guy all day. I'm like, he looks like a starting receiver in the NFL if he can clean the drops up. But probably more of like a complementary piece. Like the one player I wrote down while watching was Dontavian Wicks. Like I think he could be like that kind of player. It's like he's your he's like kind of like the hipster pick. Like everybody loves watching this guy, but he's never more than just like that complementary piece in an NFL pass game.
Yeah, he's another guy that we offered back in his high school days. We were in it for a short amount of time in the fight, and he's developed quite a bit since then. I mean, obviously, judging by the tape, and the Colorado game is the one that jumps out because of who it was against and what it was in. And he, again, another guy who plays to his size, and has I think his functional strength is great. He's a lot better short area now than he was then. I think that's in terms of can he improve his ball skills and stuff like that. I think it speaks to obviously how he's worked during the college process that he's really turned himself into a really good player. So I'm optimistic about what he can do. Again, he's got some really good tools. I'm kind of interested to see how it shakes out for him. But another, again, a really great kid.
Yeah. So I mentioned Britton Covey's not here next year, and I'm curious what both you guys think as far as whether the return game should be factored into these evaluations. Fran in his scouting reports always breaks down the special team snaps, right? There are a few guys in this draft who are fairly exceptional, or I should say pretty good. I went from exceptional to pretty good. That's quite the jump. In the return game, this is an area where the Eagles can improve. They obviously went out and they signed Avery Williams this offseason to help there, but I imagine they'll look at a few different guys. How much do either of you or both of you think the return game should factor into the evaluations, Coach Flynn, when you're in the recruiting process or looking up at players? Is that something you consider? And are there guys in this draft who you would bump their grade because they can help you on special teams?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I gave it a lot of thought because I wasn't really sure where I stood. I think in terms of evaluating guys for us, like punt returns, we use to evaluate, how you track the deep ball, and then really your level of, lack of a better word, courage. Like, if you're catching a punt and hitting it up in there, you're not afraid to be a ball carrier in the A gap. And, there's a lot of great things about being the punt returner. And then kickoff returner is, it's a measure of long speed. It's a measure of vision as well. I think those are good pieces for us. The thing I struggled with a little bit is, I think those are pluses when you're evaluating a guy for the position. In terms of like impact in the NFL, like impact returners, like the names are few and far between.
Yep.
Like it's Devin Hester and Josh Cribbs. And like, by the way, I'm dating myself with those references. Those are Devin Hester's in the Hall of Fame. And Josh Cribbs is probably not much younger. And it's the nature of, the kickers and the scheme and the rules. So, I think to use a pick for a returner only is a stretch. I think you get a bunch of athletic guys and guys that have done it before and hope one of them shakes out. And a lot of it on punts is catching it. Like the guys that consistently can field the punt and track the punt are the guys that are giving you added value. But it's a tough question because I don't think, like the guy from Virginia Tech, Zach, that you mentioned when we were going over the notes beforehand, like his film is okay. Like he's a good returner, productive returner, but it's like I don't think it moves the needle enough for me that you can't, use lesser resources and get the same impact.
How about you, Fran?
Yeah, it's something that, it's funny when we get to like the end of August and it's time to like cut down to final 53. It's Bo's favorite week of the year. There are a lot of things that get talked about when it's, how to the roster machinations of what decisions have to be made in order to get from 90 to 53 and what guys are going to be active every week on game day. And so many of those things I think can be applied to the draft because it's all about like the more you can do, right? And so that's why I am always trying to stay cognizant of the value that players bring, whether it comes from versatility on offense or defense, and then certainly on special teams. And I also think it can be a marker too for character, right? In terms of like the guys that are selfless and what else they're willing to do, to help their team, and it can work the other way as well. Some guys that honestly, like I know Zach hasn't Vic Fangio has brought this up in the past when it came to was a linebacker, right? Like guys that don't play special teams at linebacker in college, like that can be a little bit of a predictor for future NFL success. Context is obviously required for every situation, but for me, and I was glad that Coach Flynn brought that up. I remember there was a conversation I had with former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant, and we were talking about DeSean Jackson. And I was talking about what are some of the things that separated DeSean Jackson and made him so great. And he said, well, obviously, everyone talked about the track and the deep ball, and he said that the hardest ball that you can possibly catch on a football field is a punt. And it's like so the fact that DeSean was so good as a punt returner, that ran parallel with his ability to kind of track that deep ball. And the playmaking aspect, once the ball's in your hands, I mean, that can also be obviously apparent and can, translate to yards after catch offensively and things of that nature. But, for me, I look at it as more the competitiveness, toughness, selflessness aspect of it. And then also the ball skills, as Coach Flynn mentioned.
So when Fran and I were discussing, a Fran coming on today, because I need to tell the audience, Fran wasn't scheduled to do this show. Okay, it was going to be me nerding out talking wide receivers with Coach Flynn. Fran jumped on willingly. Okay, which shows A, he's a good team player, and B, ball knows ball here. Because one thing Fran said is that he wants to bounce random philosophical things about the position off Coach Flynn. So we're going to get to that, and we're going to get to some Jack Bech discussion right after this break. Let me tell everybody here about I'm sorry, I had this up. This is hold on here. Sorry about this. We are talking. This is I promise you this wait is going to be worth it here.
You are going to be floored by this.
Yes, thank you so much here. It was switching tabs here on the screen. I want to tell everyone about Empire Today. Okay. And I always love talking about Empire Today because this is the week when we're talking about home we're talking about the floors of players. We're talking about the ceilings of players. But what about the floors in your own home? You all need the home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. You have these big box stores, and you go around aisle for mile. Somehow you're hauling in materials from home. You're looking for an installer. You're coordinating everything yourself. I can't speak for Coach Flynn. I can't speak for Fran. I can tell you my wife does not want me installing flooring in my own home. That's why Empire Today is the place to turn. The big box stores might have flooring departments, but the person helping you with flooring might have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. So why is Empire Today your best bet for a new floor? They live and breathe flooring. They will help you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame there. With Empire Today, you get clean up front and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Nobody likes to wait, including you who were waiting for me to read this advertisement. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. Yes, you heard it right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/PHLY for full details.
And now we'll hear from our friends at Bet Parks Casino, because look, we know that we've got the online casino that we all love that you can access from your mobile device. But how about the Xcite Center? You want to get boots on the ground. You want to get just outside Philadelphia. You get over to Ben Salem in Bucks County. Parks Casino is Pennsylvania's #1 casino, and it's just, again, so close to Philadelphia. Take the Street Road exit off 95 and the PA Turnpike. The Xcite Center is the state-of-the-art entertainment venue located inside Parks Casino, named one of the best places to see the country's best comedians and music headliners. I know that the Larry the Cable Guy is coming up here in the next few weeks. I saw that Teresa Caputo was on the upcoming schedule. Casey and the Sunshine Band later this summer. So much to get excited about at the Xcite Center. Visit parkscasino.com to buy tickets for all shows, pregame the shows at their amazing beer garden. You can play some pop culture slots. You got roulette, you got cards and other table games, everything that you love while you wait. Parks Casino, this is how you win. Must be 21 and over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So I mentioned Jack Bech. Jack Bech is a TCU wide receiver who is getting a lot of pre-draft hype here, and deservedly so. If you saw the Senior Bowl, you saw an emotional touchdown at the end of that game. And the reason why it was an emotional touchdown at the end of that game is because his brother Tiger Bech tragically passed away New Year's Day, a terrorist attack down in New Orleans. And I bring that up because Tiger Bech, of course, went to Princeton, where Coach Flinn coaches. So, putting you on the spot here, Coach Flinn, but I'm curious your connection to the Bech family, and then spinning it to the show, your perspective on Jack Bech going into this draft.
Yeah, I didn't really have a long time with Tiger. I probably coached him my first year for 2 or 3 months. Was a good player for us. Was an all-league returner. Was a traditional slot for us here. Kind of what Fran was talking about was short but not small. A strong guy, run through the tackles guy. Whether we're throwing him a bubble screen or returning a punt, but a good player in our program. I had the pleasure to guess the beginning of the year, kind of right after all this happened. Alex Coffey did a story on Tiger and a couple of his teammates here, and did a really great job talking about his story. I only had a chance to meet Jack one time. So at my first year here at our spring game, Jack was young. Jack was probably a freshman or sophomore, but a completely different player. His highlight film was him jumping over guys and just bodying people up and being physical. And he's really, kind of continued that at TCU. They played him more as like a traditional Y, like a, big slot, but had a great year. There's a lot of air raid routes in that offense, and started out at LSU and started out kind of as a hybrid tight endish kind of guy at LSU, and then really turned into more of a stand-up big slot player. But, good family, good people. Happy to see him doing well. It's been an unbelievable story to come out of the tragedy. And again, Jack is going to, you knew it. I mean, all business. He's going to get the most out of his talent. He's got quite a bit. So I'm excited to see how he does.
Fran, the reason I was late getting that ad read up is because my Notion tab, I actually had your draft guide up as opposed to the ad reads. And I bring that up because Jack Bech is someone who you're higher on, I would imagine, than consensus. Is that fair to say?
That's interesting. I think it might just be like positional value wise that it turns out that way. I do feel like I'm probably on board with where most people see him. He's a guy, honestly, like when I watched 1 or 2 games in the fall before when he got announced for the Senior Bowl, and I said, okay, like right away, high floor, he looks like a backup, right? And I'm like, all right, I feel good about this. I watched him at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, oh, you know what? He moves a little bit bigger or a little bit better than I thought for a guy that big. And I watched him at the Combine live, like watch him go through, run routes and go through the position workout. And I was like, man, that was a pretty good workout for a big kid. And then I go back and watch every single target. I'm like, the ball never hits the ground. He just wore me out. I was just like, he's just a good player. Now, I do think it'll kind of be a function of landing spot. If we're going to talk about, what is his value and what is his role and what impact is he going to have in the NFL? Because honestly, when I'm watching him, I'm like, why couldn't he be Puka Nacua? Like, why can't he be? To me, he's that big, physical, reliable, dirty work player. Coach Flynn mentioned what that role was early on in his career at LSU. That to me, like if he went to a McVay style system, like if he went to the Houston Texans to be that guy for that offense, like there's no reason why he couldn't do exactly those same things. And so, I think for me, like landing spot will be big if we're going to try and project what his production is going to look like. But I just think he's a rock solid player across the board.
So I have a series of notes here and questions here that I can easily get to and try to improve on a clumsily hosted show. But I was so intrigued by Fran's text earlier because look, this is what the audience wants. You got Coach Flynn here for a day. You got Fran here who's been studying film all year long, but especially this draft cycle. And Fran gives that tease that there are things he wants to discuss about the process with Coach Flynn. So, Fran, I'm going to turn the floor over to you here. And I'm, as they say in talk radio, I'm going to hang up and listen for a bit here. Okay. And I'm going to let you and Coach Flynn nerd out about wide receivers.
So, Coach, the first thing I always ask everybody when it comes to looking at specific positions, especially when it's someone that majors in a certain position, most important athletic trait in your mind. People talk about like long speed, explosiveness, short area quickness, lateral agility. What's the most important athletic trait for a wide receiver moving to the NFL in your mind?
It's probably changing direction.
Mm-hmm.
And linear speed is probably 1B or the closest one. Like, I mean, the best example in my career is I've had one guy drafted, and it was Andre Yoshivas, who's the fastest guy I ever coached. And I think that is the trait that translates the most. I think it's the one that gets teams to believe in you. Again, we talked about Restreppo a little bit, right? Like you see all this really good film going against good teams, and it's like 485, forget it. It's a lot of people's take on it. But I think that's you have to be able to run to play the position. And again, close to it is you got to be able to change direction. You have to have flexibility in your ankles, your knees, your hips. You got to be able to bend. You got to be able to power in and out of breaks. You got to be able to drop your hips. Like that to me is the life and death of position. And I think, again, it's a lot easier to play with less linear speed and better change of the direction than if you flip it the other way.
Yep, right.
And I think that's the one thing that's misunderstood, or at least that I don't agree with when people say, how fast is he straight ahead? It's, well, there's one route that we run that's straight ahead, and then the rest of them start with a vertical line and then change direction. So, that to me is you've got to be able to do it. Like you can't have one without the other. If you had to sacrifice one, I'd sacrifice a little bit of speed for ability to power and out of breaks. I think the one that's overrated is catching the ball. And I think there are two schools of thought with it. Like catching the ball is the one skill that we can practice over and over at a high volume and not risk injury. Like my guys today will drag the jug machine out on the field, spring balling it on Friday, and they'll catch 250 balls. If you're a nose guard, you can't go out there and work on anchoring a double team. If you're a linebacker, you can't go and make 200 tackles tomorrow, but you can catch a ball. So I think it's a skill that can be improved. But the flip side of that is I think there are innate guys that are just, Larry Fitzgerald, that make those plays and are just such great hand-eye athletes that I think that's something that's, again, underrated. It's a guy that consistently, like the one that sticks out to me when DeVonta Smith was coming out, and I was on the pod, I think that year. But the conversation was too skinny, and right, like he's an outlier. You go another 25 years, you're not going to have a guy that's as fundamentally sound as he is. But again, look how he changed his direction. Look at his ball skills. His linear speed is good. Is he the fastest guy in the NFL? Probably not, but it doesn't matter, because he generates separation. How do I do it? It's because I can bend, and when I do generate separation, I make the play. So those are really the key jumping off points. The height, size, weight stuff doesn't really resonate with me. Obviously, the bigger the better, but it's not. It doesn't move the needle. If you're 5'11" and you get open, you're good enough. If you're 5'7", you get open, you're good enough. We've had, again, Andre's senior year, he led the league in receptions here. Andre's 6'3", 210 pounds, an All-American in track. The year before, we had a guy lead the league in receptions who was 5'8". Right. So it's what do they have in common? They could both change, they could both run, they could both catch the ball. Again, I'm sure this is eye-opening stuff, but I think the order of operations gets moved around sometimes. And linear speed is again, I think it's a pass fail for me when I grade guys.
Right.
where it's you fast enough or you're not fast enough, and then if you are fast, track fast, how do you carry your pads? Because I think that's like I said, with like a Kyle Williams, like this dude is fast all the time, every rep. I don't even know what he runs in a 40, but I know he's fast. But it's interesting because, again, I think the older I get, the less I speak in absolutes, and the more it's like, I don't know everything. I've done this for 28 years, and it's like, okay, maybe I'm wrong on this, or maybe there's a better way to do it. And also, again, at the beginning, especially this time of year when everybody's certain this guy's going to be a bust, this guy's going to be a great player, and we don't know. Progress doesn't always go like that. It's not always linear. But I think those are the things, again, I just think my order might be a little bit different.
Yep.
And I think when we're looking at recruits, there's do you consistently hit home runs? What do your top ends of your routes look like? And do you catch the ball? And then again, we had a freshman this year who was 143 pounds, who's gained probably 15, 20 pounds and is competing his ass off and is going to be a good player for us. But we also have a guy in here who's 6'5", 215 pounds, so it's interesting. But I think no matter how big or small you are, if you have those things, you have a chance to be pretty good.
So the other one I definitely wanted to ask you about, just in terms of like projection moving forward, because everybody, and I talked a little bit today about like what they look like as route runners, what that means, moving forward. And where I always struggled when I was at Temple, working in college, you're watching high school kids, those guys, you're getting different levels in terms of skill development, right? In terms of what they were taught. I remember like watching recruiting film in the summer, watching high school film in the summer while we were preparing to sweat against Matt Caesar in Villanova in week 1, and it was like, oh man, like this kid is a 125-pound wide receiver who's a junior, rising senior. What is he going to look like years from now? It's a little bit different. The stakes are a little bit higher, like money-wise, from the NFL. What would be some of the non-negotiables for you from a route running standpoint? If you're an NFL receivers coach, you're watching guys in college, and you're like, man, like if you can't do this, I'm struggling to say like I want to be able to draft you at some point from the first couple of days of the draft.
Yeah, I think there's some things that you want to see guys do, like off the tape. And I don't pretend to know what the NFL evaluation process is. I can't imagine it's much different, but I don't know that for sure. But like, I want to see guys hit home runs, whether it's long throws, whether it's like we talked about Luther Burden breaking tackles, throw short, run long. I want to see them run a comeback or a breaking point where they drop their hips and drive back to the quarterback, stop and start. I want to see them run some double moves because, again, guys that usually can do that can bend and have functional power and play with functional strength. The thing that's getting more important as I watch film is watching guys break tackles. Like it's kind of become a metric for us offensively as a way to judge how you're playing. Like if you break 10 tackles in a game, that means you're probably winning, or at least you're moving the ball on offense. It's kind of like explosive plays. Like if you're +2 explosive plays against the opponent, you're usually doing pretty well on offense. If you're generating broken tackles, again, I think that's a measure of functional strength. It's a measure of, having being a great ball carrier, all those things that we evaluate. So I think, those are the things when I'm watching tape, guys have to be able to do. And it starts with, are you fast enough to generate explosive plays? Can you change direction? Can you consistently catch the ball? And then from there, we're all trying to get the biggest, strongest guys possible, but that's not the reality of recruiting or where you're drafted in the draft sometimes. And it's, hey, where's the best value? And can this guy do it? Yes or no?
I know one of your favorite lines this time of year that you get from a lot of people in the media, not myself, but from a lot of people in the media will be like, oh, well, once he gets NFL coaching, like, oh, he'll be.
No doubt. That's usually from anonymous NFL scout, right? Doesn't have a route tree. His route tree is a straight line. Yeah, that's this time of year, no doubt.
Yeah, but in your experience, when you're coaching kids up from a route running standpoint, what is the easiest thing to fix? In terms of like, obviously each player is individual. So some guys pick things up faster than others. But overall, what are some of the easier things to fix, and what are some of the harder things to fix from a route running standpoint?
Yeah, I think the what I've learned over the course of doing coaching a position for such a long time is I used to coach a lot about head and shoulders. Get your head and shoulders down.
Yep.
Right. Well, I can do that right now and not bend my waist, get my head and shoulders down, and get a good look at my bald spot right there. But it's about, again, the position is about flexibility and dropping your hips so you have power. And so I think the thing that's the easiest to point out and the toughest to get guys to do is to play lower, to have bend off the line of scrimmage, be fast from a standstill, and then be able to drop at a breaking point or hammer your opposite foot at a top end of a route and come out with speed and power. But once you do that, like once you unlock how do I play low by dropping my hips, how do I decelerate and accelerate? It's all based on the things you don't like doing, which is stretching and lower body lifts and yoga and recovery, right? Like once you get guys to embrace that and they see the improvement, they see the difference in their stride length, the difference in the top ends of their routes, the route running, the whole thing. Like it's the easiest to spot, but the hardest to fix. I think the part that's, we talk a lot about using your upper body to help you get in and out of breaks. So, taking my arm, fixing my elbow at 90 degrees, pumping and pulling through there and getting my upper body through. I think that's something that guys it's a little bit easier because it just takes some awareness.
Yep.
As opposed to the lowering your pad level and increasing your lower body power takes a lot of painful work. It's not like doing tricep push downs and curls. There's a lot of things there that you got to eat your vegetables and metaphorically to get yourself ready to go. So the other thing though, I'll say this, and I'm the opposite of the NFL guys. Like I think the position in high school is coached better now than it's ever been. More high school teams throw the ball. There's more 7-on-7. There's more wide receiver trainers out there than ever. Like a lot of these guys we're recruiting have a wide receiver guy who's teaching them good stuff. If you go on Twitter right now, there's probably 40 different tweets that I'm going to send to one of our QCs to put up on the video system that'll help make us better players. So I kind of lean the other way.
Interesting.
I think a lot of the pushback from, these college coaches is just the lack of understanding, not wanting to know or not asking. But I think the position's very well coached in high school. I think the guys coming out are better than ever. I think what's good for us is the transfer portal. There's a lot more high school wideouts available than ever because other colleges are looking at other colleges to get guys, get guys that transfer down and up and laterally and all the other stuff. We're still recruiting high school guys and developing them.
Yep.
So I think there are some things that are hard that get to teach and get guys corrected, but I also think guys are coming to me a lot more developed than they did 20, 25 years ago.
And that actually ties into a question I want to ask both of you, and this is before we get into overtime. So we got 3 minutes before overtime here. And before we get to the super chat, and before I tell everyone about our $36 a year diehard deal where you can get Fran Duffy's draft guide. I'm curious. It seemed the past few years, we kept saying this receiver class is good, but just wait till next year, right? And there was a string of years where every wide receiver class was loaded. This year seems like an outlier there. And when I watch college football, the two best receivers I saw this year were Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, two true freshmen, right? So is it fair to say that this is a down year? I know you studied the portal, you study recruiting, obviously, and then Fran, you're deep into every draft class. Is this a down year, or is that just relative to some high-end talent that's come the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you were to look at this group and, Hunter notwithstanding, just because he's such a unicorn in terms of being a two-way player, and we talked about what his ceiling could be. I think if you're looking at McMillan and even Burden to an extent, I think, and you're looking at Golden, those guys, Egbuka, those guys all would have been behind the trio that we saw go in the top 10 last year, right? And so I think that it's just one, but I would also say the same thing about the tackles going in this draft. I would say the same thing about Mason Graham in this draft. Like it's just a down year overall. It's just, I think that's just kind of a luck of the draw. Like it's just kind of a random in that way and a perfect storm. So I would say that there are still good players. Like when you get to day 2, like there are good players that would go in any day 2 of the draft. Like Jaylin Noel's a good player. And so, it's a little bit of a down year at the top at the position, but still plenty of talent around.
To me, it's always, and I have the same answer every year, to be determined. Right, like people ask us how my dad loves to ask, how are your freshmen? How are your incoming freshmen going to be? I'll let you know. I don't know yet, until they play. So I think that tends to be the, this draft is loaded. This draft is weak. Let me know in 5 years, and I think you can say definitively, because again, as much as we all pretend to think we got to figure it out, on April 21st, none of us do. You have no idea what they're going to look like week 1 or year 1 or year 5. And so, again, I think Fran studied this way more than I have and has better perspective on it. But it's, let's see how they do before we decide what the class is and how good they're going to be.
Now, just like the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Clippers, we are about to go into Bo's favorite time, overtime. Overtime's gonna be quick today.
You need a little bit more oomph with that overtime.
Yeah, overtime's gonna be quicker today. Coach Flynn has work to do at Princeton. Fran has to study film. I want to get to this one quick super chat that I am not qualified to answer here because I have not done work on either of these players, unfortunately, and I'm embarrassed to say so. So, Fran, I'm going to ask you this. This is from Matthew Greenwood, $4.99. Thank you for your contribution, Matthew. I want to see what you guys thought of Pat Bryant from Illinois and Roc Taylor from Memphis. Not much hype, but both are physical, possible wide receiver threes.
Yeah, I liked Pat Bryant on film. 6'2" and a quarter, 204 pounds. My first exposure to him was at the Senior Bowl, where I thought he had a solid workman-like week. I thought the combine workout was solid as well. But then just going back and watching him, similar to Jack Bech in a lot of ways, where just really reliable at the catch point, not going to wow you with his movement, the top end speed, very lackluster on tape. He goes to the combine, he runs 4.61. So, I think that kind of matched up there. But even just like the twitch at the top of routes, I thought was missing. But just a really aggressive, competitive player after the catch, as a blocker, like dirty work player all day, will play some special teams for you. So I think when you're looking at Bryant, that was how he stood out to me. And then Roc Taylor, I haven't done enough to do a full write-up, but one thing I will say, just watching all the wide receivers, and again, when I talk about combine workouts, I'm not talking about the 40-time 3-cone. I'm talking about the position drills. So just watching him run routes, he was one of my favorites of all the receivers I saw go through routes in Indianapolis. I don't know if one ball hit the ground the entire time. He's a bigger kid, 6'2", 213 pounds. I was really impressed with watching him up close. I know he had a really productive senior season. Actually, the last 2 years at Memphis, he was scheduled to go to Tennessee as a 3 or 4 star recruit. And then when the new staff got brought in, they pulled his offer at Tennessee. And so he late kind of had to pivot and ended up at Memphis and stuck it out there with them just because they showed the loyalty to him. So he ended up with 2,000-yard seasons basically to end his career there. Big bodied kid, reliable at the catch point.
And Coach Flynn, you are a crowd favorite. We don't get you on nearly enough for my liking here. So before we wrap up, I want to turn the floor over to you. Anything you want to get off your chest? You want to rub in that 2017 win over Penn? Is there anything you want the audience? Are there shimmering thoughts you wanted to share with the audience before we let you go here?
Again, I just think it was a master stroke by Zach to, take AJ Brown's car for a 3 or 4 hour period to try to get him out of here to get Luther Burden in. I think again, my man Zach is always working. When does the book come out, Zach? I think that's something we haven't mentioned yet, but we should.
Yeah,
the newest one.
Yeah, September 23rd. September 30th. The manuscript
23rd.
is due tonight, actually. So,
How about that? I guarantee it's done. It's done. It has to be done.
Yeah, 87,000 words. I'm sorry, 78,000 words are finished, and then they got to be edited, and we'll see how that goes.
Awesome.
I want to end on this. I've purchased every Z Burn book ever issued. Never been disappointed.
Thank you.
Highest recommendation.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. It's great having Coach Flynn on. Fran and I are going to see a lot of each other during the next week. You can watch us tomorrow on the PHLY Draft Show with Fran Duffy. You can watch us tomorrow on the PHLY Eagles Show. Then we're back on the PHLY Eagles Show on Wednesday. Thursday, we are on throughout the draft. Friday, throughout the draft. Saturday, throughout the draft. Make sure you are a diehard. $36 a year special deal this week. I'm going to have Cam Jurgens' thoughts up later today. You can read all Fran's scouting reports. We have a lot of, I have 36 thoughts about the draft coming this week as well, including more mock drafts that you will see. So for Coach Flynn from Princeton University, from Fran Duffy, the All-City NFL draft analyst, I'm Zach Berman. Bo Wolf would tell you, as always, we love you. I will say we'll be better tomorrow. I promise you I will be better tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.